Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishnan Guru-Murthy, and this is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. We are on location today at one of my favourite venues, the 100 Club on Oxford Street in London. All the greats have played here, and we are here because our guest this week is Julian Lennon, who has brought out a new album called Jude. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you.
So this is finally taking ownership of your identity, basically.
Very much so. On the money. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's nice of you to say that, but that's absolutely true. It's taking a sad song and making it better and really taking ownership of it. And of course, I'm not sure if you are aware, but my name originally was John Charles Julian Lennon. I was tired of being the second John, so to speak. So by deed poll in 2020, I just switched the John and the Julian to finally put myself first, so to speak. And that's partly how the title came about, because I was finally felt that I was me and I'd shed a skin of many sorts. I felt this whole period is the end of a chapter of my life. With being Julian, Jules, Jude, it just felt, amongst other things, to be the right thing to call this album. And I happened to have the arrangement notes for Hey Jude. I spoke to Paul, probably the longest conversation we ever had. Number one, to tell him that's what I was thinking of calling the album. And was he okay with that? And then secondly, I really wanted his handwriting on it.
Right.
You know, so that's his writing.
That's his writing?
That's his writing there.
So I mean, I've heard the story about, well, I've read the story of Hey Jude.
Yeah.
I mean, could you tell me what it actually is?
Yeah, of course. Well, when he'd heard that Dad was about to, walk out the door, basically, his recollection that I've heard is that he was driving over in the rain and thinking about some way of consoling me. And so, the song came about, originally Hey Jules, but he preferred Hey Jude sonically and rhythmically. And so this was a song about supporting me, looking at my life as it was then and how I was going to cope with life moving forward, because of course we'd been in the public eye already. It was a very public situation. And, he said some very comforting words within the song, about taking a sad song and making it better. And I took that on board, very much so.
Did he sing it to you?
No, he's never so. I've heard him on stage.
Yeah.
But the thing for me that many have not misunderstood, but not recognized previously, was the fact that I probably heard the song more than most, like just one way or another I have. So I have a love-hate relationship with it. It really was a dark reminder of that time and place. So whenever I hear that, it's not such a happy support song. So I have to take both of those, sides of the story, and I've lived with that. But this feels to me that I've reached that point where, probably for the first time in my life, I feel whole, I feel balanced, I feel hopeful, I feel more at peace than I've ever done. It's funny when you see yourself in the mirror, and definitely, especially through the pandemic, because I was on my own a lot. So there was a lot of looking in the mirror, a lot of reflection, retrospect, and literally it was about asking myself, who am outside of all of this?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, who am I? What is my purpose? Am I happy? Am I sad? If I'm sad, how do I change that?
Because you put this on and you hear this cry of "Save me."
Yes, yeah.
And you think, oh my God, hasn't moved on yet.
These songs are about the process, leading up to where I am now. Over literally 30 plus years.
Is that how you felt when you were?
Yeah, if you look at Save Me, it's lyrically, you just see, it's me looking in the mirror going, the only one that can make the changes in your life is you. And I'd always know that, but I'd always had a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. And I'd had quite a few bouts of depression too. And so that was a fight that I had to work on. I recognize that it's me that has to make those changes for me to be able to move on, to survive, to find those points of light moving forward. And because I've always been a pretty positive person, but there's been dark moments, and we look at the world around us, and it's heartbreaking. So it's ongoing, but it's like someone was saying to me, there was another song that I released recently called Change, which is an environmental song. And I said, I wasn't expecting to write another song like this, because Saltwater was quite a big song back in the day about humanitarian and environmental issues. And I just thought we'd be past this point now. We'd have fixed things by now. But we're in a worse place than we were 25 years ago.
And environmentalism has been a big part of your life as well, which we'll talk about when it comes to the foundation.
Sure.
In terms of who you are and your identity, some people, some kids of famous people would want to run a mile from their parents' identity.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't.
You've done the opposite. I mean, I suppose because you couldn't. Is that it? I mean, that you thought, I can't run away, so I may as well own it.
Now, yes. Before, it was all about people asking me questions, and this was courting, naming it Jude was certainly courting a few questions. Originally, that wasn't a plan. I mean, again, this album was not calculated, and I didn't even think I was doing another album, so the way this came together from so many different angles, it just felt right. And I was sick and tired of all the same old. And I figured that I've pretty much answered every John Lennon or Beatles question there ever was. And so I just wanted to kind of let people know that the skin has been shed. It's the end of a chapter now. I'm very much Julian, an artist in my own right. And one of the things that was important to me about that was with the last album, Everything Changes. I really did think that was the last album. I thought, I'm done. Been doing this for 30 years. It's a tough road. I was an independent artist for 2 of those albums, 20 years. It was a really tough road, and you worked so hard on it. I worked so hard on these. And without the support, you don't get heard, you don't get recognition, and again, even whether you're with a label or without, I felt like the album was shelved. And I started thinking, what else can I do? Let me put music aside. Who am I outside of that? So it was very much a quest over the last 5 years to discover that and build a foundation outside of music, like, becoming a fine arts photographer, which I love. I love everything that I do. I'm very fortunate in that. But being behind the lens is my favorite place. But also the children's books, and the documentary work.
I mean, you've got a strong work ethic, clearly, haven't you? I mean, again, why? I mean, 'cause you don't
what else is there? Listen, I'm one of those people that if you put me on a beach, I'll be doing this after 20 minutes and, I've got to go. I've got to get in the car, an open top or a bike and discover where I am.
Yeah.
I hate repetition. That's one of my new things that I've discovered recently. How I've always worked, even in music, is I play by ear.
So you don't read music?
So I don't read or write music, which I like because it's still a mystery to me then. And I prefer that. With that, I write and record and produce and I put it out. And for me, I'm done. Next. So that's how I've always lived in the creative world.
The world is obsessed, I suppose, with what you get from your dad.
Yeah.
But what did you get from your mum?
Mum was everything. She was. She was because she was. I loved her so much. And she was also one that, she'd been through she was worried about me going into the music business originally, But she saw me in LA for the first time performing at the Universal Amphitheatre, and it was kind of tears of joy, really. There's an audio segment of her talking about that at that time.
And when you were young, very young,
yeah.
Well, how did she get you through those years where you weren't seeing your dad?
I was very fortunate at the time. She had a few husbands. My first stepfather was an Italian gentleman called Roberto Bassanini. He was more like an older brother to me, really. I mean, my mind was taken away from the stresses and stress. I mean, there'd be moments at the beginning of that kind of relationship with Mum and Roberto together where, I'd have fits of just going, where's Dad? Screaming. And I don't recall that, but she told me that. And, you know, with the comfort and support and love from Roberto and Mum, and just literally we were having a separate life. You know, a lot of people still thought we were potentially having a whale of a time and had money in the bank. We did not, you know. Mum worked several jobs, and the only thing Dad did supply was, you know, literally for school, for clothing, school, and food. You know, it was like a weird, okay, just keep him alive. So thanks very much. But, you know, that changed over the years. But it was, I think it was definitely the Mum's love and her strength that pushed me through all of this.
I mean, you must have idolised him musically, even though you had all these confused feelings
for sure.
towards him and anger and...
Absolutely, absolutely.
And has that always stayed the same?
That's never changed. I was able to separate the man and the myth and the legend and everything else, but a lot of people couldn't. So when I first started going to America and touring in America, nobody understood the darker side of that relationship. They always thought, oh, everything was fine and happy, and whether they were in denial or quite oblivious to the reality of the situation. So that was a weird one, dealing with people that I won't say were ignorant, but people would approach me without thinking about what they were going to say or do, or, you know, and it was always an effort to try and, you know, be nice, you know.
But in terms of the relationship between his music and yours, I mean, like he gave you a guitar. So how much did he teach you as a kid?
Not so much. I mean, funnily enough, the most vivid memory is actually when I went to visit him in New York when he was with May Pang at that time, whose photo is on the album cover. That particular point in time, he was really quite relaxed. You know, we'd sit in front of each other with an acoustic guitar, and he'd teach me how to play some of the basics, you know, the old rock and roll basics. And, you know, I loved that, but I didn't think it was going to lead to anything, that I was going to follow in his footsteps. It just, you know, I was just there with Dad, and we were playing on a guitar, and that was lovely. So I didn't think outside the box on that one. It was just being in the moment, being present, and enjoying that.
But when you look at your music now, do you think about the musical relationship between...
Well, listen, I think not only Dad, but the Beatles, to me, were some of the best in the world. The music was incredible. The songwriting, the arrangements, the chord changes, the melodies, the list goes on. That's why I actually, you know, I love bands like Steely Dan, because there was a similarity in that regard. It was like, they didn't keep, again, no repetition. It was all about not reinventing, but certainly growing through the course of their relationship and musicianship. I always saw that as being very, very interesting. And I've always tried to pull out the few chords that you wouldn't necessarily think of going to. And I think quite a lot of musos, a lot of musicians hate that as well, a lot of musicians really actually recognized, even from the first album, that I was just doing a few more chords like this and not just being the pop, pop, pop. I mean, there was a bit of that around, but I was always interested in taking a left turn in a song, whether that's lyrically or otherwise.
I mean, you mentioned the photo.
Yeah.
Why?
Why what?
Why is that the photo on the cover?
Why not? Okay. All right. So I scoured the internet to find something that to me represented a little boy lost, you know. But behind it, you could tell there was love there, and I felt that there was an intention for something to come out of that, and that's what I see in the picture. And I just, funnily enough, it was actually taken by May at, I think it was Disney World. So there was Dad on a lounger, and I'm wrapped in a towel. I think there's quite a few shots of that. And there were a few people around, and I just saw the look on my face and went, that's it. In fact, what I did first was I blackened everything else out. Just had my face, and I just thought, that's it, with just the title. Thank you very much, good night. It was also, I was reminded only a few days ago, that, and I didn't even catch it, that this is very much like like some of the early Beatles albums. With the Beatles, I think it was one of them. And I had
The Shadow.
I hadn't even clicked. I hadn't even thought about that.
And I suppose, again, owning your own place in it as other people tell the story.
I think if I'd set out, if I'd going, right, I'm going to call an album Jude, and it's got to, it wouldn't have made sense to me. I've always worked from a standpoint of being organic. I've been pushed into a few corners before by labels and different management people, and every time that's happened, it's never worked out. And so I always go on my gut.
You mentioned those early Beatles records. I mean, you were the first Beatles baby.
Yeah.
And I guess you maintained your relationship with each of the Beatles as well, in a way, didn't you?
Not really. There would be moments in time that we'd catch up, that we'd find each other, or we'd cross paths because we were doing a promo tour, or there'd be a benefit of some sort. I mean, the last time I saw most of the boys together was at the Albert Hall. I can't remember what the occasion was. It might have been an Eric Clapton show, but certainly George and Ringo were there, and I think Paul was around too. But yeah, so it would just be those kind of intervals, really. And then again, Paul and I have crossed paths a few times, and we keep saying we need to sit down together because he keeps saying, "I've got stuff to tell you," And we've been trying to find that window to do that, and I want to do that, before it's too late, so to speak. So it's an important thing for me.
I mean, what does Paul mean to you now?
Well, he was the, I love all the guys, but I mean, Paul, has been that Uncle Paul. He's always watching from the sidelines. He knows what's going on or what I'm doing or what. And so it was important for me to maintain an honest relationship with him. So that's why with the album, I just had to reach out and had to get in touch with him. And it was lovely, to chat with him. But it's still a bit of a distant relationship. We, as adults, I still haven't. We're not best mates, so it's...
Well, you wouldn't be, would you?
No, of course. But I do think that if we do manage to sit down and talk through some of the earlier times, that, he's hinted at stories that have, gone by in the past.
And what about the others? Because George has played a little bit for you, hasn't he? I mean, or sent you little musical thoughts.
I had a song, Salt Water, and I thought, this, George would be good on this. And so I reached out to him, and he sent me a few ideas. And so we couldn't patch those up, and I know he was busy. So what we did is we just took the best of those ideas, compressed it, edited it, and had someone else play it. Justin play it, yeah. So we were close to working, But yeah, it would have been nice if we'd have been able to hang out a bit more.
The other Beatles song associated with you or told about you is Good Night.
Yeah.
Which is Ringo.
Yeah.
So what does Ringo mean to you?
I'm not sure. No. That was a different kind of song. It was a different intention. It was very sweet. Yeah, there's been hints in other songs too that they were related to me in some way, shape, or form. But don't ask me now what they were, because my brain is a sieve at the moment with all the work that's going on.
Well, I mean, the big one is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, isn't it? Obviously, which you then wrote Lucy,
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
I'll tell you, I brought my son here because I thought today it's about fathers and sons.
Right.
I was telling him about Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. He was saying, no, but that's about LSD. So it's not, is it?
No, it's not at all. It's about my little girlfriend Lucy from back in the day, who I connected with later in her life. She passed away with lupus, and then I became the ambassador for lupus in England and America. And so I tried to do everything I can to support that. But yeah, Lucy was a girlfriend, and I used to paint in school. And I came home, and Dad was, as Dad was back then, saying, "What's that?" I said, "Well, that's Lucy. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." As far as I know, David Gilmour has the image in particular. At least it's been written up on, and it's in a few books. But I know that's a picture by me, but Mum and I both think that it's not Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. He's heard about that, and that, funnily enough, he said to me, I got a message through from someone who plays with him and has played with me, Guy Pratt, the bass player. He said he's heard about this, and he's of the mind that maybe it isn't Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Do you want it? I'm going, probably, yes. So I said, I'll get back to you when I'm off the promo tour.
So you don't know what happened to the original picture?
Nope.
No.
No idea. It could be long gone.
I want to talk about your causes. You've followed passions for decades.
Yeah.
A lot of people would assume that comes from your dad again,
Well,
but it doesn't, does it?
no, not at all. Firstly, when you're touring around the world, you see a lot. I try and observe. I'm a keen observer of life in all its forms, and I've seen heartbreak around the world and devastation, and whether it's to do with famines, whether it's to do with deforestation, whether it's to do, the list goes on. But the real way that came into play was I was in Australia, #1 single with Salt Water. I was in Adelaide, and I was summoned by the hotel management downstairs to meet these camera crews and an indigenous tribe. And I'm going, interesting. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a prank. But no, I go down, the elevator doors open. And there's in the lobby, there's a small platform, semicircular, with about 30 to 50 people there, news crews included. And I step up, and this older woman walks towards me, and she was the elder of the Murning tribe, the Murning people. And she hands me a male swan's white feather. It's about yay big. And she says to me, "Can you help us? You have a voice." Now, I was really taken aback by this. This was... the reason why is because Dad had said to me, if something ever happens to me, the way that I'm going to let you know that I'm going to be okay, or that we're all going to be okay, will be in the form of a white feather. And so when one of the oldest cultures and tribes in the world comes up to you with a white feather asking you for help, I just got the goosebumps. I thought that was undeniable. Anyway, so I took that on board. I learnt all about the tribe and all the other indigenous tribes around the world and what they were dealing with. I had no idea. And so I said, listen, I want to make a documentary about them. It took me about 10 years to do it. But we made a film called Whale Dreamers about them and their history and the other indigenous tribes. And I thought, if this makes money, I want the money to go to the tribe, the people. And the only way to do that actually legally back then was to put it through a foundation. So it was a vehicle at that point in time. It wasn't nothing more than that.
The White Feather Foundation.
The White Feather Foundation, yeah. Logically named, obviously. Also when the internet came into play properly, I put up a site so that we could get more donations in for the indigenous tribes to also buy back their land as well as protect their culture. Then I started getting a lot of emails from other people, around the world going, well, can you help us now? And I'm going, well, I'm not really a foundation. But I thought about it and I said, I am in a position to make change, I believe, and to do some good. So let me find out what else I am passionate about or I am empathetic about. Water was clearly #1 on the list for pretty much everybody. And so that became one of our main causes, working with different NGOs around the world. One in particular called Charity Water, which took me to Ethiopia for the first time. And then I'd been to Kenya and I'd been to the health clinics out there, and it was heartbreaking, devastating. And I'd seen also the young girls in schools and what they were going through, the rape killings and all that, just trying to find some education. They were actually sleeping in the chemistry room, making it a dormitory so they didn't have to go home and walk home. And I was moved by that. So we started building health clinics that moved, like ambulances also, with a scooter or a bike with facilities on the back, rebuilding schools, dormitories. One thing led to another, and then, conservation overall, but also the other main cause was, protection of indigenous tribes and cultures around the world and their lands.
I mean, what is your approach to doing this? I mean, do you have set goals in your mind that, you want to achieve X, Y, and Z? Or is this a sort of just do what you can, and if it's good, then that's good?
There's a lot of major foundations that have gazillions. We've always worked on a donation process, from the public. I haven't gone after things. It's all about things that have come to me. And again, that's how I've always operated. It's been organic. So, if a village or a town saying we've got no water, we'll go and investigate, or we'll partner up with someone that's local and we'll try and get them water. It's the stories between the cracks that we're dealing with more than the bigger issue.
And have you put your own money into this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And again, with everything that I do, photography, music, documentary, whatever money I make, a good generous proportion goes back into the White Feather Foundation to keep it ticking over. Some
people criticize, you living in Monaco and saying, well, that's a tax haven and all that kind of stuff.
I'm saving every penny I can.
This is your way of answering that, I suppose, as well, isn't it?
It was...
Well, not answering it, but it's your...
It was a safe haven for me in Monaco. And yes, it's been about looking after every penny I have. Because I can't go into detail, but I've been through some serious scrapes where a lot of money had disappeared over the years, and so I just wanted to be careful with what I have left, and whatever I make in the future, knowing that that'll be safe and secure. That was that. I mean, it's a great town. I'm privileged to know Prince Albert. We've talked about working together. I think we are going to work together. There's some plans for the future. For me, even location-wise, it works for me. It just does. I can come here very easily. I love Italy because of my stepfather, so that's 30 minutes away. If you come to my house, I'll say, do you fancy Italian tonight? We're driving an hour to Italy, to this, medieval little town that has this tiny little restaurant that the grandmother makes spaghetti vongole. And, it's things like that. So I've been very fortunate in that regard, and I love France as well, and I love Europe in general. Yeah. What can I say? The
other cause you embraced this year was Ukraine, obviously.
Yeah.
With the cover of Imagine.
Yeah.
Which is such a big thing to do, wasn't it? I imagine you must have thought long and deep about it.
People have been hounding me for years to sing Dad or Beatles songs, and I just don't understand why. They were done
because you sound like him.
Well, yeah, but they were done beautifully back then. Why interfere with that? I'm Julian, by the way, and I have a different life. Thank you very much. That's why this is an end of a chapter, an era for me, because having done that, it's like that period is over for me. I mean, the reality was that my manager Rebecca and I were in Vegas attending a Music Cares event, which was honouring Joni Mitchell. It's where the industry itself helps those that, within the industry that have fallen on bad times, whether that's financially or drugs or this. Or literally before we were going to the event, we were sitting opposite each other in the room going through what the schedule was, and she got a call from Global Citizen saying, listen, they're doing a worldwide campaign about Stand Up for Ukraine, about the situation. And it's huge, and they would really like you to be part of it. And the look she's given me right now is the same look. We didn't even have to say anything. That, I just went, the thing that's going to bring the most attention to this cause right now, the only thing that I can really do that is life-changing, is to sing Imagine. The next, horror for me, the anxiety, oh my God, was, all right, I said, yes, how do I do it? How do I do this? How do I make this real, raw, honest, truthful? I immediately thought, I can't do it on piano. It's a particular production. It's on the piano, it's this. I said, it's got to be minimal. It's got to have no production, literally no production, maybe a little reverb. And I'd done a song, Karma Police, with Nuno Betancourt, the guitarist, great singer, songwriter. During the pandemic, we'd done Karma Police. And so we got on very well doing that. So I said, listen, he said, of course I'm interested. So I go to his house. He's got a little home studio upstairs. And I'm going, so where do we begin? He said, well, I've never played it on guitar before. And I'm going, well, I've never sung it before. So, okay. So we just literally sat there running through a few ideas for about 4 or 5 times. Went into the little studio, put it down, and I listened to it, and I just said, yeah, I can live with that. It's because of the way we did it, which is so simplistic, you know. And I just sung my heart out. I just wore my heart on my sleeve, and I said, this is all I can give. This is the best I can do.
Is that how you feel about it when you say, I can live with that, rather than I love it, or I am proud of it?
Well, no, I was certainly, well, let me get to that point. But the main problem was the time frame, because this was all going to happen that week. But I was concerned. I thought, you know, there's a lot of haters out there. I thought, you know, I don't know how this is going to be received. I really, really don't. So I was panicked about that. But then, of course, I get the call from Rebecca saying, okay, we need a video now. I'm going, what? God damn it. So, funnily enough, I'd been working at this very famous studio in LA called Capitol. They're doing Dolby Atmos mixes for this particular album. It's the new thing, you know, where you're in the album. And I'd been walking by Studio A every day, which was vast, empty, with a baby grand piano in the middle. And that would work. And again, I wanted to apply the same rawness. I didn't want the piano in the room. I kind of wanted it in the back, but I wanted it in the back there as a reminder. And then I had the idea of quite harsh lighting at first, but then I can't remember who it was, Rebecca or somebody else in the studio going, well, we've got candles, we've got fake candles. And we're like, oh, okay, we could try that. So we put them around. We actually used microphone stands and just stuck them on these fake candles, but we didn't have enough, so we were in Hollywood, and Rebecca had to go out and get a few bags of candles. Literally put them up around us, and we did 4 takes. I mean, literally 4 takes, this way, that way, this way, that way, just with the candle, just candlelit, and that was it. It was perfect. That Friday that event was taking place, and that when Imagine was going to be released, was my birthday. And on my birthday, which was the Friday, April 8th, I was releasing the first song from the album. And so I'm going, oh, really? I felt like I was duped again, but the cause was so important that I said, listen, don't worry about it. It'll come in its own time. And I have to say, I was so fearful of the situation, but what the reality was, after having done that, I've never been so respected in my life for having done that. Yeah. So what I thought was going to be one of the worst experiences of my life turned out to be a life-changing, one of the best experiences in my entire life.
I mean, there's clearly a sense of release, in a way, around everything you say.
No question about that.
Have you closed the book? Turned the page? I mean, is this kind of...
Yeah.
Is this an ending for you?
Yeah.
It's not the end of your music.
No.
No, but it's an ending of this... The Beatles, John Lennon, Julian Lennon, all of that.
Yeah, again, I'm really quite a positive person for the most part, and I love to do all the work that I do, and this was quite a unique scenario putting this album together, you know, from different decades, new and old, and it wasn't supposed to be an album, it was supposed to be an EP or a single, but it's just come together in a most unusual way.
And are you happy for the world to own John Lennon now?
Yeah, sure.
You know,
take him.
So when Paul McCartney duets with John Lennon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that was a surprise, but
That's fine, is it?
I warmed to it. Yeah. No, I actually love it now, but the first time I saw it, I didn't know he was doing that. So it was a bit of a shock, But I get it. It had a serious impact around the world, and it was sweet. I felt that was a lot of love there at that particular point in time. And, once I kind of got that and understood it, I think it was a brave and bold move, but it was a beautiful one too.
Yeah. If you could change the world in any way, how would you change it?
Well, I mean, we're in the process. I have to say, the documentary work, because that's a real way of allowing people to see the possibilities without shoving the ideas down their throat. Because certainly for me, if you're trying to do that to me, I'm running the other way. With Kiss the Ground, which is about soil regeneration, we have real answers. We actually have real answers. In order to feed ourselves and the rest of the world, we need the soil to be healthy. For the most part, especially in America, it's devastating to see what they've done to the earth. And this was a practical way of showing even the farmers that if you do it organically, you can actually make more money. The environment is far healthier. The one main thing about it was that it's turned it into its own platform around the world. So people are really taking that on board, and they're really changing the world in that regard. So to be part of that alone is unique and magical. And it's about, again, with the children's books, educating the kids, starting that conversation with the parents that, why is there no clean water over there? Why is there plastic in the sea? It's all about the conversation, getting people motivated in the right way.
Julian Lennon, thank you very much indeed.
My absolute pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. If you did, then please do give us a rating or a review so other people can find this podcast. Our producer is Freya Pickford. Until next time, bye-bye.